Welcome to Adjuster Talk. Are you trying to get your first claims as an independent adjuster? Find out the easy steps to break into the industry with our Steps to Becoming an Adjuster guide. Download for free at adjustertalk.show.
Hey IAs, this podcast is powered by Royal Adjusting. If you're a new, aspiring, or veteran property adjuster, head over to royaladjustingservices.com and get on their roster for work opportunities. Guys, this is a very special edition of the Adjuster Talk podcast by IA Path. I'm your host, Chris Stanley, and I'm joined by the founder of this podcast, my co-host, Jason Heenan. Now, Jason, you'd have to be under a rock in this industry to not know what's going on. But I think we decided, wow, there's a lot going on with a hurricane that's just made landfall, and that's what we're going to talk about today. But I think you have a great perspective of over the last 18, 20 years, what hurricanes look like, what devastation looks like. And although we're early on of the devastation of Hurricane Ian, I really want to start off with what, in perspective of what you've seen, are you sensing about this storm and the damages that we're seeing?
Yeah, great question, Chris. This has all of the confirming factors that you would see in the most devastating of tropical type events. Every single one of those factors has confirmed with Hurricane Ian. And as we're recording this, Royal Adjusting is rolling a wave of guys to South Carolina as it's about to make its second landfall here shortly. So exciting times, but this has all the earmarks of a big one.
And so what we want to talk about in this episode is don't be greedy. And we'll talk about why more here in a minute. I want to introduce our panelist today. It's Koby Hearn. He's the IA Path instructor of all things business of adjusting. We always tease him about creating a master's in the business of adjusting course. He's done a bunch of podcasts on the independent adjusting podcast, but he has a legitimate MBA, from college. He knows business like no one else I've ever met. But so Koby, I appreciate you taking the time to be here. I know you got hit with a hailstorm last week in Minnesota, and now we have this hurricane. That just shows how crazy this industry is. Hurricane and hailstorm at the same time.
Yeah, pleasure to be on here, guys. I listened to you fondly, and obviously have done stuff on the other podcast. But yeah, it's been a crazy year. A lot of people were panicking about, oh no, is there not going to be a hurricane this year? And I felt like between tornadoes and hail throughout the U.S., there's been so much work. And if you have a pulse in this industry, you know that living in Minnesota, I haven't stopped running hail since May 9th, I think is when the very first big storm hit. So it's been a great year. If you want work, you should have work, or maybe you should call Chris or Jason and ask them what you're doing wrong.
Well, I'm super glad Koby's here because Koby has a very different perspective. And on this episode, I think he can really be the counterbalance to maybe what Jason and I might have an opinion on. Jason has been a catastrophic property adjuster and ran IA firms that have centered around that. I've been a daily auto guy, some cat. But Jason and I have a different perspective, I think, than Koby on some things. And so I'm excited to get into this topic of not being greedy. Because if you're around Koby in the community, Koby's the number one advocate for stand your ground, name your price, and really get what you deserve out of it. So I'm excited to get your opinion on this, Koby, to have some counterbalance here to this. But thanks for being on. And Jason, I'm going to start with you. We're saying this is a huge storm, like big storm. A lot of new people are going to get a shot. And we're already 2-3 days in after the hurricane, hearing rumblings of the adjusters kind of being greedy. Can you elaborate maybe for those who've never been in this industry, why we say that? What's going on? What are the kind of the talking points that we're hearing that are kind of potentially dangerous, especially for new people?
Yeah, I think psychologically, a lot goes on. Everyone wants to get the best deal they can for themselves. So they're looking for the best and strongest fee schedule. They're looking for the biggest names out there who are going to be paying the most number of invoices, like your State Farms and your Allstates and your Liberty Mutual, just huge companies. They're looking for those guys to step forward with really big, strong fee schedules and just having a lot of things to offer. And then sometimes, you know, like the Texas wind pool is a good example, and the Florida Citizens. You know, if you get too wild with the fee schedules, we've seen a few companies go insolvent. So I mean, there's all kinds of fear and greed swirling around the deal making part of the storm, which is right when you get going. Everyone wants to have a great deal, and be motivated to be there and work hard.
Well, let's back this up for like the person who got their license last month. They're sitting and listening to us. What are you talking about? So a fee schedule, when we say fee schedule, what we're talking about is the insurance company and the IA firm basically agree to pay the independent a certain amount based on how much damage a home has. And usually it's in brackets or categories. If it's over $10,000, but under 50, it's this amount or what have you. So that's what Jason's talking about, is that some people are waiting saying, hey, well, who's going to pay better? And maybe I should wait and squeeze people a little more to see if I get a better percentage of this bill. And now, Koby, I'm going to throw it over to you just so we get the diverse opinion here. You and I are no strangers to we believe IAs typically are underpaid, right? We believe, especially on the auto side, we see it all the time, people coming in with really low offers. And but as a new person, what is your opinion? If someone's new, kind of what is your two cents at the beginning of this conversation about what your mindset should be coming in if you're a newer person?
I think as a new person, you have to understand that, yes, you got licensing. Maybe you got training from IA Path. Maybe you went to Adjuster TV, Fail, whatever it may be, right? But you have no hands-on experience. So in one sense, you don't want to get taken advantage of, because you have to do the same amount of work as a veteran. But at the same time, you're not going to do the same quality of work as a veteran. I don't care who you are. If you don't have experience handling claims, you can be a construction worker for 20 years, but that doesn't make you an expert claims handler. So I think that, to me, if you're really looking, especially for the hurricanes, the cat deployments, getting in there, I'm not saying, to jump on the very first offer you get, but I would say you've got to go sooner than the veterans. You have to take something sooner, because the veterans, in my opinion, are going to hold out to get higher fee schedules. They're going to come in and mop up what a lot of newbies maybe screw up, and they're going to get paid for it. But you don't have the leverage as a new business starting out. If you look at it as a business owner, to leverage a higher fee schedule, to demand more, especially if you're trying to break in, because again, I think Ian, as Jason, it's got all the metrics, all the check boxes, that is going to be a massive, catastrophic event that's all hands on deck. So I keep seeing the texts and emails daily. I think that, if you feel as ready as you can be as a newbie, I think you've got to go and you take what you get on this one, and really keep the mindset of, hey, I just really want to be able to cover my expenses, break even here, and learn. The experience is what you should be looking to gain, not, oh, I want to make, hundreds of thousands of dollars. That would be a great byproduct. But the biggest thing is honing your skills and getting to a place where you can demand higher. The fee splits get higher, that, you're getting called in to do, maybe move into commercial or flood claims that pay more. But right now, as a newbie, I think that, opportunity is knocking on your door, and you need to answer it. If you feel at all ready, just know that it's going to be a crap show, for lack of a better term for you. It's going to be very stressful, very hard, and you've just got to, be ready for the grind of your life to make it in this industry.
And I think that's a huge point, is that if you're coming into this and this is your first storm, especially on property, on cat deployment, or even on the auto side, okay, you are in for something that you cannot even imagine of how hard this is going to be. And you have got to look at this as a long-term play. that if you can come in there and develop relationships, that's the key here. You're developing a relationship with the firm, a relationship to an insurance company, and a relationship to your own skills of how they need to be used. Then you're going to more than likely get work next year if you do a good job, whether your fee schedule is great or not, than if you just come in here with a hothead attitude. What kind of people are you looking for as an IA firm right now?
Oh, Chris, we want the hungriest people to get to eat the most. We're looking for those guys that want to get out there and work hard and show their value to society, and earn their dollars and listen well and take instructions well, and just be able to go with the flow and make it happen. That's what we're looking for.
Now, let's kind of flip the script a little and go on the defensive for the IA now. We kind of talked about don't be greedy and kind of hedge our bets here about need to really take the opportunities as they come to you. But let's say we don't want them taken advantage of, right? They're a new person. They have no idea what's reasonable, what's acceptable. What are some things we can tell them as to look for that might be red flags about a company, none in particular, but about a company, characteristics of a company or a fee schedule that might be a little sketchy. Jason, what can we kind of give them?
Yeah, I mean, the first and best advice here is just do your homework. Make sure you understand what you're looking at. Right now there is a time at a time where there's just you're inundated with so much information and so many options. Only 2% of that may apply to you because that's where you take your opportunity. So you have to be able at first just to be able to recognize on the document what you're looking at and know those important things. It's similar to the way you would look at a first notice of loss or a deck page. You need to know which company you're doing the business for, which IA firm is going to be managing the work, what type of training they have, and that kind of stuff. If you're new, you definitely want to go early, like Koby said, and then make sure the company that you're working with has some field resources for you where you're not going out and asking for a high percentage. Whenever you ask for a high percentage, that means I work alone and I don't need your help. That's not the audience that we're talking to right now. We want to help out the people who are getting going, who do need that training up at first and do need, good advice and to be led well.
Now,
sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. I think an important thing here is you're not married to the IA firm you first take a deployment with. Now, caveat, so people don't run away with this on a soundbite somewhere, is whoever you take a deployment for, you need to finish your deployment for on this storm. Until they cut you, that you're married to them. But after that, you can go work for somebody else, knowing what you know now, and potentially get a better percentage, a better working situation, a better management team, whatever. This is not a lifelong or career-long management decision. If you go with Pilot Catastrophe or Alacrity or Royal Adjusting, that doesn't mean that's all you get to work with for the rest of your career. So I feel like that's important to point out here that, like, we went and bought a franchise. He was a franchise owner, went from being an IA firm to a franchise owner to now back to being an independent. So Koby, can you kind of talk through, for someone who's new, they're trying to understand how this industry works, how it's so fluid to go from company to company. Can you kind of explain how maybe they should, think about this moving forward?
Sure. Number one, I think you have to look at yourself as a business. You're not an employee anymore, right? It's a mindset change of, look, I'm a business. I provide a service. I can provide my service to whoever, whenever, however, whatever that I want to do. So I think you have to look at your mindset there and say, I want, this is the type of business I want, right? So for me, it's been very fluid in my career of working as an IA. At one time, I was working for 16 different firms, taking daily claims, to going exclusive with one firm because they had the volume. They paid me what I wanted. They gave me a great opportunity. And at some point that changes, right? Firms change, people change. And you've got to look at it and say, does this still fit my business model? And for newbies, it's like, I think when you start, it's like, I want to get all the work I can. I want to get started. I want to build a cushion. And you're grabbing and like think about a squirrel, because I'm watching a squirrel out my window right now, grabbing all the nuts he can for winter, right? So that's how you are at first. But then you should be sitting on a pile, hopefully a really good cushion, and then you become more selective. Who do you like working with the most? Who gives you, consistent volume? Who gives you, who's paying you the most? And then it's priorities, right? Like, this firm is easy to work with. They're giving me consistent volume, and they're paying me as one of the top firms every time. Or maybe you're the first call list for that firm, for deployments, that they call you every time something's about to hit. They treat you really well. They have invested in you with training. So you look at it as how, it's a symbiotic relationship, right? You're not only helping them and the carrier, but they're helping you and your business. So it's a two-way street, and you've got to make sure that those are going parallel to each other. The moment the firm maybe takes a 180, or you decide to go in a different direction, that's when you have to shift your business and be very fluid to, even we talk about it being well-rounded as not just doing light auto, doing RVs, doing heavy equipment, doing property, so that you can shift as your business grows for what fits you the best and what makes you the most sustainable. And just one quick comment with what Jason said, about things to look for. Look, I don't deploy. If I can avoid deploying, guys, I'm the first to tell you, I'm not going to deploy if at all possible. But what I will say is, while it is a rush, right? You feel like it's a mad dash right now to get in and go. You have to, it's okay to ask questions. And firms that are not willing to answer the basic questions of what your fee schedule is, what the percentage is, who the carrier might be that you're working for, I think, may send up some red flags. And on the other end, just to give you what I've learned and talked to a lot of people, for you newbies, 60% is a really good mark of where a lot of newbies with no experience are coming in, maybe a little bit less if you literally just got your license. And then, for desk and remote can go anywhere from 25 to 45. That's something you'll have to look into. A lot of times they want a little bit more experience. But again, you run the numbers for yourself. Feel free to ask some questions. And if they're open and honest with you, they're in a rush. They don't want to spend 2 hours talking to you because they've got a 1,000 other phone calls to make. But just know that good firms, Jason and his team and all those guys, Pilot and Eberl and Crawford, those guys will at least share information with you and try to be transparent about. I think the other question I just want to make sure people know is kind of understand when you're getting paid for you
Right.
newbies.
I was going to point that out. Yeah. You got to ask, how long till I get paid? Because that can make a big difference depending on what your financial situation is.
Yeah, that was one last thing that popped in my head. Like, if they're saying they're going to pay you when the carrier pays, and that's 30 or 60 days out for you newbies, you may not be able to float that. I mean, maybe a great opportunity, but if you can't float yourself, you're going to have to try to maybe find a firm that's paying you every week or 2 weeks or much quicker, so you can absorb the expenses of a hotel or RV park or whatever. So those are my 2 cents.
Jason, I think that's a good last point to kind of to hit on real quick is percentage isn't everything, right? We've hinted around it, easy to work for. They offer training and management support or whatever, but how fast you get paid on your first deployment is a big deal. I mean, I remember barely having 2 nickels to rub together, trying to figure out how I was going to pay for a hotel for 30 days until I got paid. So can you kind of, is there anything else, or is it just speed of pay and percentage?
Oh, I think that if you're making career decisions, that there should be many more things to it. It sounds like Koby has tried everything that there has been to try, and he has a good game plan that fits himself very well. There's more to it than those 2 questions. As a new person, I think 60% is good, and I think that that focusing more on the process at first. If you focus too much on the dollars, you subconsciously will just start making some decisions you wouldn't understand if you didn't have those dollars to think about. For instance, a lot of adjusters, will look for ways to write up their estimates, maybe even to where it exceeds what the claim should be in value to help themselves on the fee schedule. That's an example of a person with, poor ethics. But I think focusing on the process at first, make sure you're not getting a bad deal. Make sure you're doing the math and getting your calculator out. Make sure you're doing a budget. Like, all these things are required to be a successful person. But just make sure that the math works for you, and it should. Right now is a great opportunity to be getting the calculator out.
Yeah, and I like what Koby said earlier, sustainability. This is a long game. You're not in it for a home run or a grand slam. If it happens, byproduct, as Koby said, great. But you got to think long term, build those good habits, build the things that you're going to do to make you successful. Koby, any final thoughts before we sign off and move on to our next topic?
Yeah, I was just going to piggyback on Jason because I didn't want my words misconstrued. For you newbies, Jason is right. Do not focus on the money. It causes a myriad of problems. So the last thing I want to hit on is, if you don't have a reserve cash flow, look, it's your choice to go, right? But if you have $0 in your savings and you're going to go wing and prayer it, it's going to be, you're building a wall in front of yourself, self-built wall that's going to be hard to overcome. And it really should be about processes. So hopefully, I really pray that you guys have some reserve to be able to pay for expenses, so that, you're not going to be able to complete 8 claims a day like Jason or some of the veterans. So you may only be able to get 1 or 2, as Matt Allen spoke about a lot on Adjuster TV. So, don't put the money first, but it is important to make sure you get get fair compensation for what you're doing. And make sure that it's right for you. I don't want you going broke or bankrupt on a storm and they repo your car and your house while you're gone, so just it's a balance, as we always say.
Yeah, and a closing thought here is that if you don't have the reserves to take a storm where you got to wait 30, 45, 60 days, whatever it is on the fee schedule, there are different roles and positions in the industry. And I think Jason and I might try to do an episode on this later, that are compensated way differently. It's not all you're the guy in the field writing the whole thing up and you got to wait 60, 90 days or whatever to get paid. That's not the only fee schedule or way to get paid on a CAT property assignment. So don't feel like, oh, I don't have $10,000 in the bank to float me for a month or two. I can't do this. There are going to be opportunities, but that's going to help you understand your situation, will help dictate what you can accept. Because I don't know, Jason, I want to end with this, but you might have more to tack on to it, is if somebody accepts a deployment and then cuts themselves because they're broke and can't float, right? Broken can't float. That's a good term. Is that worse than if they hadn't gone from an IA firm standpoint? Is that like a black mark on them to that IA firm?
Yeah, we would do everything we could to avoid a situation like that. And in past situations, it hasn't been talked about right now, but hopefully your IA firm would support you with an advance. And then, in a really catastrophic situation, most IA firms are going to double up on their payroll and start running it weekly, or something, because it's completely understandable when you're going in to a situation like that. So, Chris, rather than talk about what to do when you get in that bad place, I would say, let's not build the invisible wall that Koby was talking about, and do everything we can to prepare for it and plan for it financially, and then take advantage of what your firm can offer in terms of an advance. It's not an uncommon practice.
Awesome. All right, guys and gals, keep walking your path and claiming your life. Get out there. Hurricane Ian just happened. It's claim time. This is the time that we're needed more than ever, more than any time in the last 3-4 years is right now. So get out there.
We know that becoming a successful independent adjuster can be hard and lonely. When you join the IA Path Adjuster Mentorship Community, you get everything you need to succeed, including access to IA Path mentors, on-demand adjuster training, and a community of over 500 adjusters who are walking the same path that you are. And we would love to walk this journey with you. You can get a free 7-day trial at adjustertalk.show. Keep walking your path and claiming your life.